Okay guys, we're going to talk about the third organ found in the plant. The first one was called the leaf. The second is so if we go back up, the stem. And then the third one is the root. All right? So there are basically three main functions of the root. The first is the anchoring the plant to the ground, keeping it upright. All right, that's very important because the anchor needs to be kind of placed in the ground, and the roots help keep it there. The second is absorbing water and dissolve nutrients from the external environment. So we know that there is definitely water found in the ground, and the nutrients are very important that are found in the ground. So the roots help take that water and minerals and nutrients that are in the ground and put it into the plant. And finally, I had mentioned this before, when the plant makes glucose and it doesn't need to have that glucose right away, doesn't need to use that glucose right away, it gets stored in the form of starch, and that place of where it gets stored is the roots, all right? So most root vegetables that we eat are specialized for carbohydrate storage. So carrots, beets, that is what it's specialized for. It's carbohydrate storage. So let's take a look at the root organ. So root hairs look like that. Okay, those are the root hairs. They are small extensions of the epidermis. Okay, so here's the epidermis. Okay, small extensions of it. And they help with nutrient and water absorption. They create a larger surface area. So water is found over here. The root hair will grab it and put it into the root itself, the main part of the root, to help with transporting the water to the other organs such as the stem and the leaf. The endodermis, right, which is that blue part here, okay, that helps control the transport of minerals between the cortex, which is that gray stuff here, and the vascular tissue, which is that vascular bundle right in there. All right, I'm going to erase that because I need to see a little bit clearer. The pericycle is the layer, all right, surrounding the phloem and xylem, which is that vascular. So there's your phloem and there's your xylem. Okay, that's the vascular bundle. That orange ring around the phloem and xylem, that is the pericycle. That's a layer of tissue surrounding the phloem and xylem. The path that the water and the nutrients take from the soil, so if this is the soil, this is the external environment, it goes into the root hair, right, which is also the epidermis. It goes into the cortex, into the endodermis, which is that blue ring, past the pericycle, which is that orange ring, and then into the xylem, because we know the xylem is the tissue that is the tissue that's responsible for the uptake of water into the plant. All right, it goes up from the plant up to wherever it's needed, in such as an organ such as the leaf. All right, we know that the xylem is dead, so therefore it doesn't absorb any of the water to do this task. So there are two kinds of roots. All right, two main kinds of roots. The first one we're going to look at is this one right here. Okay, so like a dandelion. All right, if you ever try to pull out a dandelion, you'll know that there's a huge long root that often follows when you pull it out. All right, so a taproot is one main large root. All right, it allows the plant to go deep into the soil for water absorption. So if there's any water located deep down in the soil profile, it's going to grab it with that one long root. All right. It may contain some smaller lateral roots, so that means sideways, kind of like lateral root. But the main large root is the taproot. All right, that's what they call it, the taproot. So dandelions are an example of a plant that would have a taproot system. The second, so that would be the first. The second kind of root system is like grass, all right? That would be an example of a plant, is known as the fibrous root system. So it's a lot of small little branching out roots, usually spreading out horizontal, whereas the taproot went down vertically, all right? So these fibrous roots spread out horizontal near the surface. All right. So the tap root was able to go down deep into the soil profile, whereas the fibrous root kind of stays along the surface of the soil profile. All right. It helps stabilize the soil, prevents soil erosion because those roots anchor to the soil, and it doesn't allow the soil to wash away during a lot of water or wind erosion. All right. And grasses are an example of that. Finally, the last organ we're going to talk about are flowers. So flowers is the reproductive organ in a plant, all right, in a flowering plant. So many plants do not contain flowers and reproduce through other means. So the female reproductive structure is the ova or egg. It is contained within the oval, and the male reproductive structure is the sperm, which is contained within the pollen grain. So flowering plants contain both male and female reproductive organs. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the male reproductive structure. All right, so let's take this is the stamen. All right, so the male reproductive right here, okay, known as the stamen, okay, and the male reproductive organ, the stamen, consists of the anther, which is this part right here, okay. It contains the pollen, which is the sperm, and then you have the filament, which is this part, which is the stalk that supports the anther. All right, so that is the stamen, the male reproductive organ. The carpel is the female reproductive organ, which is all of that. All right, and it consists of the stigma, which is the top part here. All right, the stigma. It is the sticky surface that acts as a landing site for the pollen, so the pollen can stick to it. Then you have the style, which is the long part here. It is the stalk. All right, it helps the pollen go down into the last part of the carpel female reproductive organ, which is the ovary. All right, and that contains one or more ovals that forms a seed when fertilized. You also have something here called the sepal. It is a leaf-like structure at the flower that protects the young flower bud. All right. Pollination is basically, as a definition, is the transfer of pollen grains to the oval. Plants accomplish pollination with the assistance of wind, all right, and small animals that get stuck to their fur when the animals walk by. Flowers attract animals and insects through their bright colors and scent. These organisms pick up the pollen, all right, from the stamen, which is found up here, all right, from the stamen. So the whole thing here, the insects pick that up and transfer the pollen to the carpel, which is the female reproductive organ of another flower of the same type. So once the flower is pollinated, fertilization occurs. So fertilization is the definition of the fusion of the pollen grains with the ovum to form a seed, and those seeds forms within the ovary, and the outer tissues of the ovary become the fruit. All right, so here you go, pollination. That's why bees are so important. Yay, we like bees. All right, because they help with pollination. And then the fertilization occurs where it goes down into the it goes down into the oval right here to meet with the egg, and then a seed is formed in the form of a fruit, and then those seeds start to grow into another plant. You can watch the video here to show pollination and fertilization. And then you have here a couple of practice questions that you guys can, talk about, learn about, and fill in to answer. All right, guys? And that takes us to the end of this lesson, and I hope this helped out.